Welcome back to Schlocking Tales, kids, the show where we take a look at some of our favorite stories and see what life lessons we can learn from them. I, of course, am Mr. Mike. Let's get our thinking caps on again so we can get started. Someday when you get older, you're not going to want mom and dad to drive you around everywhere. You're going to want to have your own independence, and that means having your own car. And today's story is about a young man who bought his first car, and this car had a mind of its own. It's called Christine. Our story begins in a place called Detroit. A car factory was making cars on an assembly line, but there was one car that wasn't quite like all the other cars. This car didn't like to be touched by just anyone, and she didn't like it when she wasn't treated with respect. This inspector got in to look her over. He let the ashes from a cigar fall right on her seat. She decided to teach him a lesson. When you get older and start smoking cigars and cigarettes, where do you think the best place to dump your ashes is? Would it be A, the seat of a beautiful car, B, an ashtray, C, a used beer bottle, or D, a drinking fountain? That's right, B and C, and D. Well, years later in California, there was a young man in high school who really needed some help. His name was Arnie. He met his friend Dennis every day to get a ride to school. Today was a special day because it was the first day of school. Arnie sure was lucky to have Dennis look out for him, but he wished that he was as popular as Dennis, and the girls liked him as much as they liked Dennis. Later, when Arnie was just trying to go to lunch, a big bully named Buddy and his friends took Arnie's lunch. Dennis came to help. Let's see what happened. Kid, you should not be bringing knives to school. Can you think of some ways that you could have ruined Arnie's lunch without using a knife? Well, you could pour toilet water in it, you could put wood chips in it, you could step on it, you could smash it. You see? You don't need knives in school. Arnie sure was depressed on the way home, but then he saw something that got him really excited. He made Dennis go back to where he saw it. I wonder what it was. It was a car. It looked old and broken down, but it was a car, and it was for sale. Arnie wanted to buy it, but Dennis didn't think that he should. Then they met a man who smelled like armpit hair and whiskey. His name was George Lee Bay. He sold it to Arnie for $250. He said the car was a her, and her name was Christine. But how could she have been the same car from earlier in the story? She looked so old, ugly, and dirty. When you get older, you'll look uglier and dirtier too. That's just how life works. Maybe someone like Arnie will find you and love you. Arnie needed someone who would love him, and Christine needed a man who would love her and treat her with respect. But Arnie's parents sure didn't like Christine, so Arnie took the car to Darnell's garage. This would be the perfect place to fix her up. Arnie got so busy fixing up Christine that Dennis didn't see much of him. As Arnie was focusing on Christine, Dennis and his friends were focusing on the new girl at school. Her name was Lee. She says no to everybody, said his friend. Look what she's doing to that pencil, said the other friend. Dennis decided he was going to talk to Lee. If you're not sure what to say when you approach that special someone, just pay attention to what they like doing, and you pretend to like that thing too. That's a great way to start a conversation and a short-term relationship. Dennis went over and asked Lee if she wanted to go dancing, but she told Dennis she already had a date. Dennis couldn't believe that Lee had already said yes to someone else. I wonder who that other guy is, thought Dennis. Dennis found out later at the big football game that she had a date with none other than his friend Arnie, who he had hardly been able to see lately. Arnie had fixed Christine right up, and she was looking great. After the accident, Dennis had to go to the hospital. He was so disappointed because he would much rather be out there playing football. and his friend Arnie came to see him. They talked about missing each other and fixing up Christine and everything. And then Arnie said this interesting thing.
Has it ever occurred to you that part of being a parent is trying to kill your kids?
I remember when I was younger, I found this phone number where you could talk to really educated women. And I value education a lot, so I called a lot of times. And it pays to be educated, like $5.99 a minute to be educated. And my parents, they don't value education the same as me, and so they did want to kill me, I think, for a little while. But they didn't, and that's the important thing. Do you remember Buddy and those other bullies from earlier in the story? Well, they still didn't like Arnie, and one night they snuck into Darnell's garage and did this. The next day, Arnie came with Lee to get Christine and was shocked to find what he saw. Lee was shocked too. She tried to tell Arnie how sorry she was, but Arnie just needed some alone time. Since Arnie loved Christine, he knew the only thing to do was to fix her up again. But Arnie was shocked to find that Christine was able to fix herself. Christine loved Arnie so much that she wanted to help him. She thought she would pay those bullies a visit. She went to go see this guy named Moochie. Then she went to go see Buddy and the rest of his friends. Remember how big and strong Buddy acted when he was picking on Arnie? Bullies like to act big and strong. Well, sometimes you just have to stand up to bullies. You just have to stand up and show them that it's not okay to treat you like that. And when you do that, then you see that bullies are not so tough after all. Now the police had a few questions. Detective Junkins knew that Christine belonged to Arnie, and he thought that Arnie had killed all those bullies. You see, he didn't know that Christine was alive. Meanwhile, Dennis and Lee were both worried about Arnie. Arnie just seemed so different, and they thought Christine was causing it. They thought the only way to help Arnie was to destroy that car. It was going to be a showdown. They got Christine to show up at Darnell's garage, and they were going to destroy her with this great big tractor. Arnie was behind the wheel, and he wasn't backing down. Do you think Arnie would have died if he was wearing his seatbelt? Probably not. It's a good thing to remember wearing your seatbelt, even when you're already crazy. With Arnie gone, Christine fought harder than ever, but Dennis was a lot stronger in his big tractor. When she would try to fix herself, Dennis would just keep crushing her until Christine stopped moving altogether. Finally, they got Christine to the junkyard and completely crushed her. Detective Junkins was there too, so they decided that Christine would stay in the junkyard. Do you think she could fix herself? The answer is maybe. And then she would live happily ever after. The end. Having a car is a big responsibility. And having a car that's alive and evil is an even bigger responsibility. It can be really hard. Hopefully you just don't go crazy like Arnie did. Let's review everything we learned today. Use ashtrays and beer bottles for your ashes. You don't need knives at school. Learn to be creative instead. A great car can get people to like you. Even if your parents are mad at you, there's a good chance they still love you. Bullies are actually cowards. Wear your seatbelt even when you're crazy. Boy, I sure learned a lot today. I feel like a better person already. If you want to be a good person or own a car someday, you should like, share, and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments what you learned today. This is Mr. Mike saying, just be yourself. You're the one and only ever special you, so just be yourself. And if people don't like you for that, well, then you'll get a nice car someday and then they'll like you. Okay, bye.